¿Qué tal? ¿Cómo están amigos y amigas de Futuro, la radio del rock? En otra cita a través de las plataformas digitales para conversar con una verdadera leyenda de la guitarra y de la música. Y le damos la bienvenida al gran Aldi Meola. Aldi Meola, welcome. Welcome again to Chile, between the screen, but you'll be back in Santiago very soon. Welcome to Radio Futuro, welcome to Chile.
Wonderful. I look forward to it. I particularly love Chile. You know, I love coming there.
Yeah, well, some kind of memories, special memories in your.
Yeah, I remember the first time we stayed at the Hyatt Hotel. It just opened, I think, and we had some days off, so we really got to enjoy and see a little bit of Santiago, and that was the first time, and the second time as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just find Santiago and the little that, you know, from the few times I've come, I sense it's a more modern sense to this country. It kind of reminds me a little bit of the West Coast of California. You know,
wow,
a little.
That's huge. And you come here with the most recent work. As an album about the Beatles across the universe, special work for you. Let's talk about that. The Beatles, the songs, the selection of the songs. How do you go into deep of the music of the Beatles? I suppose it's one of your favorite bands ever.
Well, yeah. I mean, when I was 9 years old, my sister, who is 7 years older than me, she brought home Meet the Beatles, the first record. And I mean, she was bringing home most of the music. I mean, she was a teenage girl, and they brought the little 45s. But Meet the Beatles was a whole record album. And I loved it immediately. And then very soon after that, when the Beatles played on the Ed Sullivan Show, I think more than half the country was watching. So at the time we had almost 200 million people. About, you know, half of those people were watching Ed Sullivan on that Sunday night because there was a huge anticipation to see them. And it was truly great, you know. And so following their music when I was just this kid, I was also taking guitar lessons from he was more versatile in a jazz kind of sense. So I not only got a kind of formal education very early on from a jazz point of view, but he also appreciated the aesthetic beauty of this pop music. You know, like, you know, a piece like Michelle or Yesterday that has beautiful harmonic changes and beautiful melodies. And here, there, and everywhere. There was a certain kind of sophistication that all jazz musicians loved of the Beatles, because it wasn't based on. I mean, yeah, maybe lyric-wise, it was all about love and girls and all that kind of thing. But the actual, if you eliminate the words, what you're left with is a beautiful song. And it might not be very long and involved, and it might not be very technical, but the basis of it, of these songs, was beautiful, you know. And my approach was really just to combine what it is about my style and kind of merge it with them, with all the due respect that those songs deserved, you know. So, but what's amazing is what I loved when I was 9, I still love today. You know, I've never had a time when I didn't appreciate them. When they went solo, I was not a big fan, but I really loved the Beatles in that short 9 years they were together.
And you made a different version of the songs, a different kind of songs. And when you go deep into the music of the Beatles, what kind of thing you discover about the melodies, about the harmony, the process of the handcraft, the kind of song? What you discover or rediscover and listen again and play.
Well, it's a reimagining. I mean, not rediscover. I reimagined a new way to do it. Not so much from the melody, because the melody shouldn't really be tremendously changed. But the harmonies were more so reimagined with some rhythmic differences, some syncopation differences, that really kind of signify or identify my, my inclusion or my spirit into the music. And then, of course, some of these songs, or most of the songs of the Beatles, because in those days, pop songs were very short, sometimes 2 minutes, sometimes not more than 3 minutes. That's it. And if you take away the lyrics, the voice, and there's not much there. I mean, what's there is beautiful, but it's too short for an instrumental. So I wound up writing parts that would be more elaborate had there not been lyrics. So that's why Strawberry Fields has all these new parts in it, or Norwegian Wood was under 2 minutes. It was 1minute 59 seconds.
Yeah.
The original. So I wrote, like, how can I expand on this as if it was, keep the melody, keep the bridge, because it's so embedded in our brains. We all know these melodies forever, and I didn't want to leave them out. I didn't want to change them, but I just want to add to it to bring my own element into the music.
You did a very different list of the song, but a special one that I like very much is "Your Mother Should Know" from Magical Mystery Tour. Why this song? It's not a very famous song from the Beatles, but I think it's a beautiful song.
It's an amazing song. It was one of my favorite songs, and really from one of my favorite albums, Magical Mystery Tour. That record, if you listen to that record, if someone's watching this and they haven't heard that record in a long time, or if they never heard it, you should put it on now. It's really an amazing piece of work. They had the very good fortune of having George Martin as a producer, who really brought in the elements of orchestration and also sound effects and imagery. So when you're this young teenage boy sitting in your room and you're listening to this music, I mean, it took you away on an adventure. It was more than just a simple pop song. There was visualization in the music, and so well done. It's crazy. But, the Beatles were so popular, and the record company gave them free license to experiment, especially in 1966 or 67 when they decided not to tour anymore.
Yeah.
The result of the not touring was that elevation of their production. Yeah. They went up so high in terms of producing music that was, because they wanted to make something very different, and each song was, and Your Mother Should Know was just one of those right away. It's, as soon as you hear it, you love it,
Yeah. Did you ever meet him as a single person in your career? You met Paul, Ringo, George?
Yeah, I met Paul.
Right.
In the most beautiful way. I was on my first album, because there's 2 tribute albums. The first one, I happened to make it Abbey Road.
Yeah. Hey.
And it was one of the highlights of my career. I felt like a little boy going to Disney World. It was so incredible to be exactly in the same place they were. Same floor, same walls, same ceiling. Everything was nearly exactly the same. And there was like a magic to it. So I recorded 3 songs in 3 days that I was very happy with. and it was only meant to be a lesser production, so a more simplistic acoustic version. That was my intention of that first record. So after 3 songs, I went back to New York, and I tried to match the sonic quality, and by going to different studios, and we couldn't do it. Abbey Road had a far superior sound quality, I thought. So I obviously didn't want to change the sound of the record with the rest of the music. I wanted to keep consistency. So I decided I have to go back. But before I went back, I wanted to take as much time needed to arrange the rest of the music. Like Penny Lane is very sophisticated in the way that I added all of these little inflections of my style, and so was I Am the Walrus. It was involved. Michelle was even one of the harder pieces. The way that I did it, So what I did was I didn't go home because I wanted to go somewhere alone and isolate myself. So I wanted to rent a house. So I rented this house in Long Island. Way out on the end of Long Island is a very popular place called the Hamptons.
Okay.
And I've always wanted to go to the Hamptons. So I said, okay, why don't I do something special? So I'm going to rent a house in the Hamptons. There's millions of houses out there. It's so huge. So I called the guy up. I said, I'd like to rent your house. And he said, well, I normally don't rent my house, but I have 5 days that I'm going to California. And if I rent it to you, you have to be, I didn't tell him who I was, by the way. He didn't know. He didn't know who I was. So he calls me back and he says, okay, you can have the house for 5 days. I said, oh, wonderful. And he goes, but you have to promise, he said to me, you have to be very cool because your next door neighbor is kind of a famous rock guy.
Okay.
I said, well, who is it? Paul McCartney.
Oh my God. Your neighbor.
Paul McCartney. So yeah, I got to meet Paul, and it was just a dream. It was like a bucket list wish. It was a dream come true. I always wanted to meet Paul, so I got to meet Paul. He was my neighbor, while I was arranging some of the rest of his music and John's music, I was watching him go in and out of the driveway with his brown Rolls Royce, and right there, I could almost stone's throw, just right there. And then a year later, I had the finished CD, and we gave it to him, and we talked again and everything, and it was just beautiful. And then when I was 19, I got to see John Lennon record because I was in the next room with Chick Corea.
Oh, wow.
And John Lennon was in the very next room next to us. And I was so shy, I couldn't even talk to him, but I got to see him record at the board, and it was like, oh my God, I'm playing with my favorite band and one of my favorite musicians in the world and songwriters, John Lennon's right there. So it was a beautiful start to my career, and it's been nonstop ever since.
Conversamos con Aldi Meola hasta ahora, que se presenta el próximo 4 de marzo en Santiago. Ya vamos a hablar de ello, de su show en Santiago. Let's talk about, I would like to ask you for a great loss some weeks ago, Jeff Beck, one of the greatest guitar players of the all time. What is your opinion about him? I know that you played with him. What is your opinion about him?
I never really did play with Jeff Beck, but he came to see me play a couple of times at the Hammersmith Odeon in London. Mm-hmm. And I seen him play once or twice as well. And we definitely talked to one another, and I'm sure it was, for me, I love what he did. I think he was a stylist in that he had his own style that he was the best at in that particular way that he played. I don't think he was a schooled musician, and it would have been rather difficult to put one of my music charts in front of him, because I'm sure he didn't read music at all. So we never did get that opportunity to play, maybe because, you know, he was also maybe shy of musicians that were schooled, you know, but yeah, I think, you know, we lost a giant in the rock guitar world. He was one of the top 3 or 4 giants that I grew up with listening to in the 60s in particular, you know.
And you are a part of the great guitar, rock guitar or jazz guitar, like Jeff Beck, Clapton, John McLaughlin, etc. What is the guitar now? In the 2023, what is the guitar? Last night we were watching Super Bowl and Rihanna, and it's spectacular. And we kind of see Nuno Betancourt. What is the guitar now in the industry of music?
Oh, it's very difficult because there are really some great new guitar players. And they're all, a lot of these guitar players that are getting the attention of us are doing some very unique things. Sometimes it's tapping, sometimes it's, you know, 2 hands on the fretboard. They're really trying to do something unique so that they have their own style, and they're doing great. There aren't any record companies left that will help develop a guitar player. You know, in the 70s, when I got my contract, there were a lot of record companies that would invest in an artist to help build their career, and that those days are gone. There's no record stores anymore. It's all you know, it's all almost free, if you know what I mean, with streaming and all. So it's not the best of times, but that doesn't mean that there aren't any great guitar players. There's a lot of young, phenomenal guitar players that are just, they have total passion about what they're doing. And some of them might be heard. I mean, a lot of people know about them from the internet. But it's a little tougher, I think. You know, it's not like a record company is going to sign them for a lot of money. It's probably not going to happen.
Yeah. Finally, let's talk about the show in Santiago next March 4th in the Teatro Oriente, aquí en la Comuna de Providencia, very close from the radio. And I think it's a kind of journey of your whole career and across the universe, no?
Yeah, I mean, parts of it will be also from a brand new record that is not released yet, and it'll be probably a double record because it's like I have 15 brand new compositions because of COVID. You know, there was a serious period of lockdown, so I had a lot of time to write music, and I think I've come up with some very interesting guitar music, because a lot of it was designed and written for solo guitar, because I really thought when COVID, if there is an end to COVID, that we're not going to be able to come back so fast with a band, because traveling will be very difficult. So I wrote it with the original intention of being able to perform it solo. But as time went on, I got the urge to add things to it, let's say. So it's a very involved record. It's you know, I'm going to be playing at least 4 or 5 new pieces, and some also from the last Beatles tribute record, and of course some Piazzolla. I always include some Argentinian Piazzolla
wow.
in my show. I mean, as long as I live, I'll always have something of Piazzolla. And we do one. We're going to do one Gismonti piece because I'm a big fan of Egberto Gismonti. Something he sent me some 6 months ago. We're going to work that into the set. And then there's some older pieces of mine as well, but it'll be primarily acoustic this time.
Well, so I would like to, if you can made an invitation for the people, Santiago, Chile, for your concert, closing this interview.
Well, I hope to see a lot of you come out to the show. You're going to get a pretty amazing show. You got great musicians that will be playing with me. I have a phenomenal percussionist from Madrid, Spain, Sergio Martinez. I have another guitarist that is a phenomenal guitar player from Sardinia. His name is Peo Alfonsi. And I'm going to have a pianist who has worked with me for the last 25 to 30 years in many different bands and different periods. He's from Argentina, and his name is Mario Parmesano. So that will make up the group.
We should have made this interview in Spanish, maybe.
Yeah.
You joke in Spanish?
Perfect Spanish, but today we do English.
Okay. Aldi Meola, thank you very much, and we'll see you soon in Santiago.
Can't wait. Looking forward.
Nos vemos. Gracias, Aldi Meola, ha sido un honor de verdad. Y les recuerdo, el próximo 4 de marzo siguen las últimas entradas a la venta en el Teatro Oriente. Será la presentación del señor Aldi Meola, que regresa a nuestro país, y nosotros nos reencontramos en otra edición de Futuro a través de las plataformas digitales. Que estén muy bien. Chao. Gracias.